Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got the Festival of Forgotten launch party here today, everybody. It's exciting, so exciting. Yeah, what are we gonna be discussing today?
Hello,
Let's
everyone.
see. Hello.
All right,
Uh,
so
I'm. By the way, I am the Eldritch Author, and I am co-author with Rick Hines for the Festival of Forgotten Revelations of the Dark Carnival, which is gonna be great. We're
yeah,
gonna be evil and magnificent.
super exciting. The disembodied voice that you can hear is Ian. I am
Hmm.
the CEO of Nine Realms, the who handle marketing and all the fun stuff for Storytellers Forge, and I'm just going to be here hanging out, listening, and then taking your questions and passing them off to the Eldritch Author here.
Heck yeah, heck yeah.
Awesome. And just as a note, we are already at $750, $1,000.
Oh, holy crud! Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Do we? And we can see what the tiers were pledged.
Yeah, so if you pop over to, I'll drop the link in chat as well, but if you pop over
Yes, please do.
to the Backerkit page, if you're not watching live over there,
Hmm.
we have a bunch of really cool stuff in the tiers. Boom. There is
Six
that link.
backers at $2,000.
Hell yeah. So
And
yeah,
for those who may not know, this crowdfunding campaign, this crowdfunding launch for the campaign book is going to be over the course of the next 24 days. So send these carnival tickets to everybody who may be interested.
absolutely. We have a bunch of really cool tiers here, which I'll just
Hmm.
recap here quickly and then let you take over and talk about the project. So we've
Absolutely.
got our digital Darkling edition, which is a digital tier for the PDF, as well as the VTT edition over on Pedron. Everyone will get that at $40. At 70, you get a hardcover of the book as well as the PDF and all digital stretch goals, including the VTT. At
Hmm.
250, you get the Jackdaw loot box, which is our loot box package, which includes the hardcover, a pack of Hughe's Earl Grey tea, Dark Carnival sticker pack, Festival Enamel pin set, Storytellers Forge USB containing all digital content, a novel set in the world of the Black Ballad called Memory Thief by C.D. Corrigan, the Storytellers Forge Player Adventure Journal, the Ringmaster's Gaze Liquid Core Custom Dice set, and all nicely packaged in a loot box that will be shipped to you. Uh, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
and then for our special backer investors, we have the $750 tier called Villain of the Realms, which includes everything in the loot box tier, but you will also get to contribute to the art with a PC who has committed miscellaneous villainy and wishes to be immortal. You will get a wanted poster of your character sketch, as well as a bounty for your PC put into the book.
Heck yeah. There is a limit on that last one of the first 10 backers.
Yep.
Um, and in fact, two of them have already been sold, so we have 8 remaining spots. Get your spot today.
Excellent. Awesome. So I will hand things over to the Eldritch Author here and let you talk about the Dark Carnival and what it
Mhm.
is, what inspired it, all that fun stuff, and I'll get out of your hair.
Alrighty. So the Dark Carnival was inspired originally, as many great things do, at a D&D table. It was pre-COVID, and my table of God, goodness, my DM was insane. 9 players at a local hobby shop. We uh we were kind of like we were getting lethargic, or not lethargic, that's not the word. We were a bit tired of this years long Curse of Strahd campaign that was going on, and so we decided to change things up, right? We were all like hit with the malaise of, oh, this has been going on for so long. Partially due to how many players were at the table. And so, we decided to put all these ideas in a hat, right? Figuratively speaking. And almost immediately, the table seemed to gravitate toward the idea of us being a carnival. Like all the PCs just being a carnival and traveling across whatever land we were in. Whatever setting the DM wanted to choose for the time. And yeah, that's right. Uh, and so my DM pulled me off to the side because I guess they and the other players noticed a charisma in me that I didn't recognize. Because as far as I was concerned, I was just like this, quiet nerd, right? Um, it was also before the mustache, if you believe it. Yes, yes, it predates the mustache. My mustache is not as old as Hugh is, uh, as far as a character, and so they wanted me to play the ringmaster, and I accepted, although I was like what, and session zero consisted of us RPing how my character, Hugh, Percival Lawcross, met all of the other PCs. We all started off as level 3. Hugh was a homebrew warlock that I had made, which is actually now the warlock subclass in the Festival of Forgotten book, as there are 13 subclasses, one for each class, including inventors. Um, and and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Also, my DM knew to trust me playing an evil character, and that's going to probably come up a little bit later in this stream about talking about, how we approach evil in this book. Um, and it was a phenomenal time. But then COVID hit, things got sidelined. It was also the first time I ever cosplayed as my PC at the table in person, right? So like that was already the start of things. And then shortly thereafter, I started up on TikTok by that same DM suggestion, and then I just bumbled my way into the notoriety that I have today. And from that point on, the Dark Carnival as both a setting and a concept grew. It wasn't all laid out prior to my, launching into visibility. And something that I always tell, I always try to tell writers who are unsure of their own IP, their own creations. You, as the author, have the almighty power of retcon, right? The only person dictating what is canon to your creation is you, right? Um, so like the setting of the Dark Carnival has expanded since then, to the point where I've ended up meticulously crafting and recrafting, molding and remolding the villain, Hugh Percival Lawcross, into this multi-layered, enigmatic, um, inhuman but just human enough kind of villain. The kind of trickster character that we love to see, but I hope at least I take a very unique approach to it. Uh, an amicable villain that you love to hate and isn't there to be a pool of hit points. Um, and is more of a plot device for a human-shaped plot device to drive the character development and narrative of the player characters forward. And that is something that is heavily, heavily emphasized in the Festival of Forgotten player agency. It's what every player wants. It's what the good DMs want. It's what Hugh wants. It's essentially by giving the players the power to alter the course of the story and really feel important in a world and universe that otherwise doesn't. Very Lovecraftian in that way. Um, it expands upon the fun and capability of like what collaborative storytelling can accomplish. Um, and that also goes into the how to be evil section that that Rick and I, have put together essentially. That alignment is not a hard rule; it's a static thing. It changes as your character does, and character development is such a huge part of what makes collaborative storytelling so immersive for me, at least. As far as like how did this book come about? Well, I gotta give credit where credit is due. I did not initially think of the concept of the titular Festival of Forgotten. That was Rick Hines, right? I uh, I gotta give all the credit for its inception to Rick. I did obviously play my part. It we are co-writers. We both put in a lot of effort into the mini campaign that prominently takes up half the book. Um, and and I loved it because Rick posed this idea of like, and this also comes from Rick being a fan of mine as well. Like that's how we initially started off. Being a fellow writer and nerd, Rick was like, "Hey, I would love to, send you like, some of the books I've written, um, which are like that. This is also precursor to the Black Ballad, and our writing style is so similar that we forget who is where in terms of like who wrote where in the Festival of Forgotten book. It's great. It's great. We're both edgy goth lords who just love our absurdism and our edginess in our writing, but like full throttle, tongue in cheek, like no holds bar. It's great. But I love the idea, especially because the concept that I have for Hugh Percival Lawcross as a character is he is an entity that has earned and clawed his way up to patronhood to the point where he is now fully immortal and equally bored. Um, Even though he has his own long-standing schemes and goals in mind, half of his motives like are a callback from, man, I am so bored and I love seeing good stories. And if I can't find a good story, like watch a story unfold, essentially trying like wanting to watch history unfold for a given world, aka your player characters, um, he'll make them. And so like the idea of a festival that goes into the esoteric idea of you you don't know what you have until it's gone, but dig a little deeper. Go into the going into the at what point does a memory make a man or a woman or an MB, right? Like how far does it go where if you were to lose that memory, how much of yourself would you lose? And at what degree of memory? Something called a treasure, if you will, a cherished part of someone's memory, whether it's a memory of joy, a memory of loss, a memory of rage, all of these things. Do they make you who you are, or are you who you are despite the loss of those memories? Are you a better person with the loss of those memories? Are you a worse person? Is nothing really changed? Um, and that sort of esoteric, like philosophical questioning is the kind of thing that a mad lad like Hugh would absolutely encourage to find out. Like almost scientific. But we have magic. When magic is involved, the level of like for science just goes into the like insane, and that it was so perfect. And it's from there that we expanded on the idea of the Festival of Forgotten, where without spoilers, we will never um like I will try my best to like remove any kind of taking away from experiencing the story yourselves, because it really is something to experience. um is this little sleepy town called Blackwater is they appear despite being semi isolated from from modern civilization, they are having a problem where things are going missing. Both the mundane and the aforementioned esoteric. Memories are being lost. Memories of things, memories of moments, memories of people. Neighbors are forgetting who they are. Um, like neighbors are forgetting who each other are. People are forgetting who their who their deceased spouse is. Um, People are forgetting, and then there are some times where like an item taken also takes away the memory associated with that item if it has a strong enough connection to them. Like, say for example, you know, I wrote my very first book, hypothetical, right, with a pen, a very specific pen, a pen that I put on a shelf as a reminder of how far I've come as an author. And someone or something took that pen, and along with it, the memory of that triumph. Who would I be as a writer? How would I be as a writer? How would I be as a person? And these are questions that the book doesn't tell you the answer. It doesn't preach to you about, oh, this is the nature of things, and this is this is the result of this kind of memory or person or thing being taken away from you. It doesn't tell you what the answer is. The players find the answer for themselves for their player characters. I have run this campaign twice. Currently still running through one of them. And the answer has been different for every single one of them. Sometimes the characters remain mostly the same because that important pivotal memory didn't define them. It just helped them become who they are. For others, it did entirely alter their personality. It really depended on how that memory influenced and shaped that, like, who they are and how much they rely on that memory to be who they are. Is the morally gray, rough and tumble, um uh revenant, call back to Crow, the Crow seeking revenge, uh, if they lose the memory of their quarry, of their quest for revenge, who are they, right? And sometimes the characters don't even know who they are anymore. um and through the multiple endings that we have set in place, because again, like, we emphasize so much on player agency, um there there's just so many different ways that this can go. And it's like, it's, to be fair, and like there like, because there's like what I consider the canonical ending, and that's what I refer to as the good ending, and then there's the bad ending. And it's kind of hard to get the bad ending. Like, you gotta be some level of terrible. Like, the party as a whole needs to be just terrible, like just morally apprehensible to get the bad ending. So if anybody's like worried, because I know people like me, like, I get anxiety when it comes to games like Baldur's Gate 3 or Divinity 2, where just the simplest of dialogue option, which just would seem otherwise completely mundane or a non-issue, alters the course of my entire story later on. Like, that kind of unpredictability without, like, looking up a spoiler map, um, really does not do my mental state great for that. But at least in Festival of the Forgotten, the endings that we have posed, it makes sense. It's it becomes very clear very quickly uh who the bad guys are, but not all of them. Not all of them. And it's been a whole lot of fun. And on top of that, the second half of the book expands on the sort of universe I've crafted, right? Not taking place in Faerun, no Wizards of the Coast copyright, right? Um I do not wish to be beholden to the coastal wizards, if you will. Um, and so I've been given this freedom to like sort of craft this setting that is just, I guess, for lack of a better term, vague enough where it's like it's designed to for storytellers and DMs to insert their own world into the cosmic scale of it all, right? Instead of one material plane, there are countless, right? Um and it's you know it I have loved continuing to build on it as I go, where the Dark Carnival is but one player in this massive expanse. And funnily enough, that also ties into the Black Ballad, because we're essentially like putting these two worlds together into the same sort of multiverse, if you will. um and and as far as the Dark Carnival is concerned, when it comes to like the player supplements, we have like 40 plus spells that are Eldritch Brood, if you will. Some of them even named after Hugh, in the similar fashion to like Tasha's and Mordenkainen. Um, but all to bring a sort of humor and fun to the table, right? And that's another huge part of like that is like the crux of the theme of the setting. Dark absurdity. But not like hopelessly dark necessarily. Rather, if you really think about it, like, and this is like how I view it, right? In in D&D and other TTRPGs where there's any kind of randomization with the dice system, they are at their core utterly absurd. You have, for example, a 5% chance to get a nat 20 based on the math of like dice rolls and stuff, right? So so any character at any point has a 5% chance to do something absolutely bonkers insane. And that is so absurd. The stories that have occurred because of a nat 20 or a nat 1. Um and sort of so lean into that, right? Take the absurdity of the dice roll and make it into the theme of the setting, where everything just further up like trumps each other and trumps itself in how zany stuff can be. When Hugh is like encountered, he is absolutely unhinged in the most fun way, at least like in the way that I've played him. Think of like a dark iteration of Robin Williams' Genie. And no, not Jafar. I'm talking Genie, right? The way he just warps reality and himself for a gaffe, for a joke, for a pun. Um and like nothing mechanical either. Like just like going into the freedom beyond mechanics, just for the sake of RP and for the sake of fun at the table. The things I've had Hugh do, like I've narrated Hugh doing, never ceases to like th- even if the player characters hate his guts, and they should hate his guts, um uh the players love the heck out of him as an antagonistic force, whether or not he is the primary antagonist. And whether or not he is, well, that's for the player characters to decide, right? And that's the crux of that, essentially. And also, as far as like the 13 subclasses, because I know like a lot of people love player supplements, like give me more subclasses, give me more spells, give me more features to play with. We have a lot of warlock invocations and pact boons, actually, um in the Festival of Forgotten. And is even one that has a prominent role in the story itself. And then for the subclasses, we not only have the typical fifth edition, like one for every class. They all have a sort of potential villainous bent to them, and a setting agnostic description, because that's another thing that we wanted to make sure was clarified, is we wanted to make this, yes, it's 5e compatible, but we want it to be more as easily translated into other TTRPG systems as possible. So all of the subclasses while they could very easily be a part of the Dark Carnival and are very much inspired and made to be in the Dark Carnival as a faction, um, we have setting agnostic descriptors for how they would translate in a setting that sees neither hide nor hair of Hugh or the Dark Carnival, where they all of these features and goodies in the second half of the book don't require the Dark Carnival to exist to make sense. Because just like that freedom of DM and player creativity is so very important to me, and I don't want people to feel like they have to be locked in a setting or faction to enjoy what Rick and I have put forth, right? And yeah. Oh my goodness. Didn't think I had it in me. No lie. Ian, do we have any questions or any prompts we want to go into further elaborating on the content of the book?
So I'm not seeing any questions in chat yet. Remember, folks, you can just drop those questions in directly tube chat if you're watching over there. If you're not, if you're watching over on Backerkit, I believe you can pull that up pretty easily as well. And I'll grab those and pass them over to Hughe. But let me see. I have a question myself, actually.
Okay.
So as you were, kind of developing the character of Hughe, what was the, like, obviously there's different ways to approach doing like a Dark Carnival setting or like a type of like Dark Ringmaster character, and like where did the specific ideas for Hughe come from with regard to like the Lovecraftian influences and things like that? Like, why did you go in that direction versus kind of like, there's the Feywild Carnival that they did that, like, and why why did you decide to make this go in that other direction?
So there are so many. There's actually there's multiple facets to like what shaped all of that. So, much like how an artist uses like references to make a commission, right? Or to make a for when it comes to writing or drawing, Hugh's initial inspiration, surface level, aesthetically and personality wise, actually came the from the pre-pilot episode of Has Been Hotel, not the pre-pilot episode, but the pre-pilot clip of Has Been Hotel, that first showed on the internet, like for the first time in video format, before like they polished it up for the pilot. Alistair, the radio demon. I was so and so I had been following that for a very long time. And this also Hugh and the Dark Carnival, as I've created them, it predates the Witchlight, right? Not to invalidate the Witchlight in any way. Like, from what I've been told, it's a very good book, right? A lot of fun. But so yeah, for in terms of like that and like how he acted, how he was like a deal maker, very apathetic and yet jovial. The way he like carried himself and all of that, heavily inspired by Alistair. And it's actually only through coincidence that both of those characters are canonically Arrow Ace. Like, that was a happy accident.
Nice.
Because like and part of that is spite toward thirsty bards, but like also like it I felt like it added a layer to his personality in a way that like you know I don't know how to describe that, honestly. I don't know how to articulate it. I'm gonna move past that for the time being, but um what what further added into what made Hugh as he is. um the more I delved into his character and the more I fine-tuned different aspects of him, I also put little bits of myself into him, both things that I relate to and things that I abhor, right? Um like well, for lack of a better term, without going so far into it, there was a point in my life where I didn't feel like a person because of trauma related stuff, right? Um lu- for a little bit of relation with it regarding the loss of human life when it came to mourning the loss of a friend, mourning. There was a point in my life where, for reasons that like I won't necessarily get into, I was losing a lot of friends, and it was very commonplace for for there to be a funeral on any given month, and it sort of and this is also years before I ever wrote Hugh. Um, and there was a point where I had reached the conclusion that like I didn't feel human. I didn't feel like a person. I felt like I was completely drained of humanity. I was still a person. I was still me, but I didn't feel like me. I didn't feel human. And I it scared me. I didn't like it. I hated it. But that feeling, take it in the other direction, right? Take it into the direction of, well, what would that look like to, instead of do everything in one's power through like, self-care and therapy, for example, instead doubling down and fully embracing that inhumanity, that otherworldly detachment from what makes a person, and that then you get Hugh. And it's funny, like I actually do tell like my fans as often as I can that if I would hate Hugh in person. Like I would utterly hate him because, and again, because a lot of his personality is based on parts of myself that I healed from, right? A period in my life I that terrified me. Um, and that's also reflected in his backstory, where like he became the product of a cruel universe, not despite it, but to spite it. Um, Something that I think is very relatable, but to such a monstrous degree that I hope people don't relate to that level of madness. Because when I say madness, like, yeah, is he like unhinged to like a comic degree? Absolutely. But he's also unhinged in a very real and dangerous way. Uh he is the kind of person that you are safe if you entertain him. You are also in incredible danger if you risk boring him after the fact, right? It's the double-edged sword, like the sword of Damocles sort of deal. Um, like just the sword hanging over your head of like, oh, I better keep him entertained, otherwise I am very you know, de- expendable.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then as to go further into that of like more things that like shaped Hugh as a character, right? Um, when it comes to like the Dark Carnival and how it, which is not related to the Juggalos, which is not related to ICP. I've gotten so many people being like, "Oh, is this ICP related?" And it's like, no, that's just the name of their one album they wrote or made. And to be fair, the like a a a dark carnival is not like a copyrightable thing. You know what I mean? Um Now, as far as my IP goes, like that is copyrightable, right? So the Dark Carnival, what I wanted to go with, and what a lot of online trolls helped me double down on, and that's a whole story in and of itself, uh, is that rather than going Fey, right, in terms of like the Feywilds, rather than going into like creepy shock and gore carnival, like what a lot of people do, it's not a bad concept. It's like it's a good trope, right? But it's not what I wanted to do. I liked the idea, and this is also how I gained like the fan base that I do. Um, is to have a carnival that accepted the lost and misbegotten in a universe that would have otherwise snuffed them out, right? Where the setting itself of the Dark Carnival is dark and absurd, but also warm. Where magic is abundant and out of control in the best way, but not in a way that is so reflective of, what you would typically see, like whether for like horror or whimsy. It lends into an absurdity of its own. So absurd, in fact, that canonically in the setting, Hugh has a galactic army that he sometimes deploys to worlds that he wants to invade. Like few and far between, but it happens. To the point where, like, even in the book, in one of the flavor texts, one of the blasphemy domain clerics, the Vicars, is like, the Dark Ringmaster has a war host that traverses the stars and, to take worlds that he wishes to use for his own machinations. Yes, we're still a carnival. Why do you ask? Like, just again, lending into, like, fully doubling down into how much more absurd can we make this, while still retaining its own aesthetic, if you will. And yeah, it still has the creepy carnival aesthetic, but the second you step in to the setting itself, it's not that. It's not like something this way comes anymore. I have always endeavored for it to be its own thing in that way, where it on the surface it looks like every other carnival, but once you open the first tent flap, it's a whole nother world, figuratively speaking.
Awesome.
And sometimes literally.
Awesome. Okay, we actually have a bunch of questions now, so let me dive into some of these. Yeah, we'll keep these kind of quick so we can make sure we answer everyone before we wrap up here. So, okay, easy. What was your favorite part of the book to write?
Oh, I think my favorite part of the book to write, like I wrote like I wrote like pretty much most, if like, yeah, like 90. No, not after Rick got his hands on it. 90% of the second half of the book I ended up writing, but so like it's hard to say within that reach, right? But as far as the first half of the book, where the mini campaign takes place, my favorite part was the part where, for the third ending, or essentially what I refer to as my headcanon canonical ending, is the good ending of the book. The book where it's actually the easiest to get if your player characters aren't utter sociopaths. Where I essentially, Rick was just like, "Hey, this is your ending. Go nuts. Go absolutely feral with it." And I did, to the point where it ended up turning into like the equivalent of an RP heavy Final Fantasy final boss encounter. Like, in terms of like scale and grandiosity, and like it is a climax. It is a story climax that was, you essentially, like, the player characters were built up for this moment, this full throttle release of the brakes, where Hugh finally gets to the point. Hugh and the story itself gets to the point where it looks at the player characters dead in the eye, and it's like, all right, there's only a gas pedal now. And I had so much fun writing it. And again, that lends into what I just said a moment ago. Being able to just be as absurd as possible, but at the same time coherent enough for it to be meaningful. When in the one table where I finished the mini campaign, there were points where the player characters cried. Like we had to stop because it was so moving and spectacular at the same time. And
Excellent.
so I would say that was my favorite part of the book to write.
Excellent. How does the mechanic for lost items work?
For lost items, do you mean the I guess for clarification, the items that are stolen or forgotten, or
I believe that's what they mean, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the way the mechanic works is periodically, and again, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers to the best of my abilities. Periodically, things and memories are going to risk going missing. And there will be opposed checks involved where, someone or something is out and about taking things. Now, it could be mundane things, and it is often mundane things, like, a certain inquisitor's left sock, a rake, or half of one's rations. But then it starts to escalate the more it's not, like, either not addressed or not stopped. Where the where memories are at risk. Starting off with like simple memories, but then escalating into like more precious memories, where once a memory or an item is taken, depending on who took it, it ends up straight up removing the memory of them, right? Not in a way that's irretrievable. They're not erased. They're just relocated, right? And honestly, when it comes to anything beyond that in terms of the memory stealing and item stealing mechanics in the campaign, I really do need to leave that for you to experience yourself. It's something that the DM slash storyteller has to pay more attention to. But it's meant to be both impactful to the story, like both impactful to the story of the player characters, because again, player agency, like make it about the players, as well as gets the players to think more about their characters that they've created. What changes, what makes them them, really fleshing out and potentially even driving character development, maybe a change of alignment, a change of goals, who knows. It's entirely up to the player.
Awesome. Question that was also asked over on the Backerkit page regarding the inventor subclass. Notice that this project mentions having an inventor class. In 5e, there isn't a class unless you are talking about artificer. So is this a genuine new class that you guys have made that's featured in the book, or where or what exactly would that option be compatible with?
No, it's just artificer. It's just artificer.
Fantastic. But there is a new subclass for artificer.
There's a new subclass for it, yes. Copyright issues. That's the long and short of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can weigh in on that a little bit too. There are certain terms that the coastal wizards do not like being used in third-party
including
supplements.
Certain robot boys.
Yep, certain robot boys, certain squid-faced guys, etc., etc. So
certain
we find creative ways to talk about them.
multi-eyed floating heads.
Yep, that's another one. But yeah, we just find creative ways to talk about them when we need to. Okay, moving on. This is from Azriel Seraphim. Hey, boss man, what were some of the ways you helped differentiate your class and subclass themes, spells, and abilities from what was already out there?
So this lends into like sort of, again, thanks to Rick and Storyteller Forge for this, that really helped me like find myself in terms of mechanics writing, like, and as a mechanics writer, like, again, I didn't know that was even like a thing I could be, and yet here we are. When it comes to like making new subclasses for like pre-established classes, and when it comes to writing mechanics in general, when you're making spells, subclasses, what have you, homebrews, if you will, One of the important things that I need to keep in mind at all times is the meta. I need to be mindful of the of every other subclass and spell and what have you across the published content. No, I do not take into account other homebrews. I would I would die of starvation if I just stuck with I would never get anything done if I had to account for all the homebrews from other people and other creators, no matter how prominent or amazing they might be. And plenty are, right? But in terms of the currently accepted official publications, we'll call them, uh, needing to keep in mind what has been touched upon and what hasn't. Um, what themes the subclasses the already existing subclasses have covered for a class and what hasn't been covered. For example, Rangers. They have covered the gambit of dragon themed, beast themed, hunter themes, right? With crossbows and stuff. But Rangers are defined by being naturalists. They are masters of a type of domain. Why does it have to be just material plane? It could potentially be infernal. Insert Hellhound Tamers. And also, who doesn't want a little Hellhound? When it comes to the Inventor class, right? What hasn't been covered? Well, there aren't really any Dr. Frankensteins. And Necromancers are a fun archetype to play. So, why not make utilize another intelligence-based class to make a Necromancer-esque subclass, i.e. Necrorites. And then it kind of spirals forward from there. Looking at the themes that have already been created and adding to them with themes that either other classes have done that the subclass you're working on hasn't, or something new entirely. Same thing with the Dread Saint. The Dread Saint is actually, in terms of mechanics, is inspired by what I loved from the Warlord class in 4th edition, which hasn't necessarily seen a sort of translation in 5e. You could argue for Battlemaster, but it's not the same, right? Having a fighter subclass that is focused on I bolster the fighting capabilities of everyone around me. And that is my gimmick. That is my niche, right? So yeah, that's essentially what I plunge into when it comes to making subclasses is, that.
Awesome. For this next question, without going into spoiler territory, what changed the least between the first draft and the final version?
Not a lot, actually. Yeah, I'm actually gonna say, in terms of what was the least changed? Not a lot changed much. At least in terms of substance. Obviously, there are a few mechanical differences here and there. Unless you're talking about the classes and stuff. When it comes to the subclasses, I think the ones that were the least changed were, oh goodness, which one would it be? That's actually a question I don't have off the top of my head right now.
Be interesting to come back to that later on.
Yeah.
Once we can talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we don't want to share just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. We've got, I think, 2 more questions here. More backer related, but I see there's multiple sets of dice in the add-ons, but only one set promoted in the loot box. Are the other 2 sets of dice add-on exclusive? Yes, they are. I can answer that.
Yes. Yeah, if only because I couldn't answer that question.
Yes, those.
I leave a lot of the logistics to Rick and Ian over here. I'm not inept at business, but I am not as nearly as versed as they are when it comes to things of that relation.
Yeah. Rick answered the least change, which is the OGL license.
Ah! Ah! Oh, thank goodness too. Oh my goodness, because actually, let's touch on that real quick. One thing that like really got us sweating is we stay on top of business related news when it comes to TTRPGs, and the risk of the OGL changing almost entirely altered the course of this project. Like if they didn't back the F up and like altered their course, we were about to completely abandon that. Like it was so nerve-wracking. Oh, so thank goodness we didn't have to. Oh,
Yeah, that would have been
oh my
interesting.
goodness. I
Um,
remember the panic setting in for me, at least for me, where I'm like, "Oh no. Hey Rick!" And Rick's like, "I know. I know."
yeah, well, that was there's other challenges these days, but we'll tackle those at the back end of the project. Um,
Mhm.
okay, and then actually, unless any more pop in, this is our last question. What is it like having come so far from the table, from running the game at the table pre-COVID to making videos in your room to having built this community and a production and now the book? The journey must have been insane in retrospect.
Uh, I don't know. Um, whether through a mix of uh neuroses and uh surrealism, I guess. Uh, it None of it ever registers cuz like at the end of the day like I cuz I look at myself in the mirror every day. I'm not nearly as successful and special in my head as what I actually am, if that makes sense. And I know we're like this wasn't meant to be like super like uh you know deep and sappy or whatever, but like truth be told, like it hasn't hit me, and I don't think realistically, again, I could be proven wrong, I don't think it ever will, and I kind of prefer it that way.
You know, coming from a similar position in some ways, yeah, no, it doesn't all the time.
I
I know
and
what you mean.
funnily enough, I don't want it to change me. So if it not registering with me is that I've come this far is what it takes to keep me humble, I'll take it. I'm fine with it. And if anything, it also allows me the delightful surprise whenever I'm recognized or complimented or congratulated. It's like I'm being essentially pleasantly surprised all over again every time. And that's a feeling that I never want to lose. I never want to become so used to this to the point that it's just another day for me. I want every triumph to feel like a triumph.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, that was the last of our questions in chat. We are at $12,506 with 73
Heck
backers.
yeah!
So, hell yeah. Nice growth so far in our first 54 minutes of launch. Do you have anything
Hmm.
you wanna add or say about the project, or say anything to the folks in chat or the backers before we end here?
I could not be where I'm at without you guys. And I am looking forward to all of the chaos to come. And that, you know, expect to see more like this. More madness, more chaos, more fun in the future.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for tuning into our launch party, everyone. We appreciate it. Campaign will be going for another 24 days or so. We will be ending, I believe, at midnight on Thursday, the what is it, 27th? Yeah, 27th. So make sure that you share the campaign, check out all the content and teasers and updates that'll be coming out over the next few weeks. And if you head over to Backerkit.com, and hopefully we're on the front page, but if not, search for Festival of the Forgotten and go into the community tab and go down to the spread the word community achievement and share directly from that page. That'll help us unlock some desktop backgrounds for everyone, which is a nice little bonus. But yeah, check out the campaign. Make sure you back it, share it with your friends, check out our stretch goals and all the other cool stuff going on, and we'll see you on the other side.
Also, a special thanks to Ian.
Oh.
Love your face, dude. This is great. This has been great.
Thanks. We've had a special guest here the entire time, so I'm gonna
yes, hello, little one.
He gets taken care of here. But all right, thank you everyone, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.